Okay, well, welcome everybody to the August meeting of the Colorado Hydrogen Network. I'm, of course, Brian DeBruin, as most of you probably know. We've got the agenda here on what we're going to go over today. We've got a little bit of news, and we've got Jim Corboyan, who's going to give us an overview of Yosemite Clean Energy. Going to talk about biofuel kind of in general a little bit, and then just some other things that have kind of been going on. So let me get started. So a little bit of an update on the 3 hydrogen fuel stations. This is up in Fort Collins, Denver, and Pueblo. And last few months we've been hearing from Buford Bar, but I thought I'd just sort of cover that. This picture you see here is a picture of the hub starter station that New Day Hydrogen is envisioning. Pretty sexy, kind of nice looking. So that's a nice little graphic they've got there. And the news here is that for the Denver and Pueblo stations, the sites have finally been identified. I know they've been working that for a long time, and it's good to see that happening. So the Denver station is actually in Commerce City, and you can see the map here. Not too far from, here's, if you can see my cursor, Interstate 76, Interstate 25, and Interstate 70. And it's up about here, 6361 East, I think it's 72nd Avenue. Yeah, 72nd Avenue. There's a bird's eye view, I guess we could say, of the site itself. This is a Stinker brand of gas station. And I don't think, I don't see anybody from New Day on. So that's where that is, and then here's kind of a street level view of that. So looks like there's plenty of space there. Also, because there's a little bit of a store, there's going to be some humans around, I think, most of the time, if not 24 hours, to kind of keep an eye on things, which I think is good. So that's that station location. Then down in Pueblo, the site here is just off of Interstate 25, off of Highway 50. Up here, it says parking lot. This is where the Colorado State University campus is, up in here. But this other view is a little bit of a blown-up view of Highway 50. So it's not exactly like right on the freeway, which would be lovely, but someday. But it's not too far off. So Highway 50, Hudson Avenue, 18th Street, and then it's over here at Erie and 18th is where that is. I think, yeah, that's all I've got on that. The other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is the Hydrogen Energy Foundation Trust. Well, they've finally got their 501c3 or not justification, but certification, I guess I'll say, from the Internal Revenue Service. So they're all ready to go for taking donations. The website has been updated, and it looks nice. There's a lot there, and I encourage you all to maybe go back to heftfoundation.org and take a look at that. And of course, this is what the tax-deductible donations can be used for. And I do want to mention that I've put up $2,500 to match any other grants. So if any of you feel are moved a little bit to send them a check, or I think you can do it with credit card now. I haven't verified that, but at any rate, that'll double your donation and match it. And even $10 would be great. So if you're willing, go ahead and do that. You can send checks here, or just get in touch with Jim Fouch, or go to the giving at heftfoundation.org to organize that. But no donation is too small, as they always say. And those donations will be used for trying to get some vehicles and vehicles set up, either for the fleets to try out. If somebody wants to just use a truck for a little bit, they're going to try to set up some trucks for that. Also looking at trying to get some passenger vehicles that people can drive as well. And so there's a lot of ancillary costs around those things, whether it's just either taxes or insurance, other things like that. So this foundation is really important for getting our first vehicles going here in our area. All right, So one more thing wanted to mention again, and this is the slide I actually showed last time, is CRAD or SEP, CRAD Enterprise Partners, is for the third year in a row having their Hydrogen Mountain Retreat up in Boulder, October 27th to 28th. And that is by invitation, but there's been so much good networking and sharing of information at this that I wanted to make sure everybody knew it was happening. It'll be October 27th to 29th again. And the I really have to hand it to CRAD how they get a lot of discussion going between people without doing silly. Sometimes you go to these events and you have to do these um, kind of silly uh, exercises or whatever to get people talking. They do it in a really good way that makes sure that you get a chance to talk to anybody that you want to talk to at this event. Um, and I will be recording some podcasts on site to anybody who wants to. Uh, that's involved in attending, and we've done that the last 2 years. So this year, I'm sure we'll have at least as good a turnout as we've had in the past on this. Hydrogen Day's coming up, and like I mentioned last month, we're really just starting the planning process, and keep you posted as things move along. But we really want to try to feature the coming hydrogen fuel stations, and that's what we're going to focus on as kind of our theme. Still looking at where to have this event, whether it might be at Hypercell X, which is the company that's going to build the hub starter station, fuel station for New Day. They're down in Colorado Springs. The other option might be like we did 2 years ago on the CSU Spur campus. TBD where that's going to be, but that's what we're looking at. Also considering having it not on Hydrogen Fuel Day or National Hydrogen Day of the 8th, which is a Thursday, looking at possibly having it on a Saturday so that hopefully we'll get better attendance, possibly by the public and maybe some of the fleets because they won't have to take off work to come to it. And the following Saturday is Columbus Day weekend, so that's probably not an option. So possibly the 3rd. We'll let you know. And you can see there who we're really targeting to attend on this. The fleets, the public, possibly even the media and so forth would be probably more likely to attend on a weekend. So if you want to get involved or just have questions or ideas or anything, just go ahead and shoot me an email. My email's there direct, or you can go through the website and find me that way. My email is on there as well. All right, so biofuels, and Jim Corboy's been patiently waiting, but let me just do a couple of things to kind of set the stage for Jim. And all right, this is a hydrogen group. It's a hydrogen call. So we're talking about biofuels, which may have something to do with hydrogen, but it certainly has something to do with clean energy. And this is a chart that I've shown before and I've put together giving really my opinion, which hopefully is based on plenty of good data, that these may be the areas where electricity, hydrogen, and biofuels get used. And obviously for the electric grid, if we just start at the top left there, we're going to stick with the electricity. I don't know that it makes that much sense to try to store energy as hydrogen and then convert it back to electricity. Probably better off to just stay as electricity. Transportation, you get a lot of people disagreeing on this. I really think that battery vehicles are only ever going to capture 20 to 40% of the market, and that's not my opinion. That's the public. That's the public opinion polls by the 4 big polling agencies show that. So I think hydrogen's got to pick up 60 to 80% remainder to close that gap, because we've got to convert every vehicle out there from motorcycles to the Class 8s to zero emissions. Industrial heat, I think hydrogen can play a role there because of the high temperatures it's possible to create. It's a little bit easier than using electricity. But I think there's probably places where we're going to still need some kind of natural gas. And I think biofuels could fill that role by creating a renewable natural gas that could be used for industrial heat. Aviation, getting ready to do a podcast with High Sky talking about using hydrogen for aviation. And I think that makes a lot of sense for... you know what? I'm going to mute everybody So please feel free to unmute yourselves, but I'm just going to go ahead and do that just to make sure we don't have any background. Aviation, I think for domestic flights, certainly for drones, hydrogen is the way to go. Possibly for the big, I guess they don't call them jumbo jets anymore. The 747 was a jumbo jet, but for long range intercontinental, we may have to stay with a fuel that's got carbon molecules in it. So possibly biofuels will make some sense for aviation. Just have to see on that how that works out. Building heat, I don't think there's any question that for new construction, heat pumps are the way to go, whether they're air sourced or ground sourced heat pumps. But for existing buildings, trying to convert gas or oil furnaces and the means of getting that heat into the building, we may have to stick with a biofuel. We may have to start feeding renewable natural gas into our natural gas systems because just too many, for example, individuals, people aren't going to let you come in their house and convert their furnace. They're not going to want it, a lot of them. Also, the cost. Like, for example, in my house, I've got a boiler that creates hot water baseboard heat. To convert that over to heat pump, they don't really have heat pumps. They're pretty inefficient to get to that higher temperature for hot water heat. So it may be that we, in a lot of cases, have got to use a biofuel, probably a renewable natural gas for building heat. And then for maritime, I had heard a while back that there's over 100 ships on order now that are going to burn methanol. And so possibly that could be another good use for biofuel. So speaking of biofuel, what are we talking about? We're really talking about using all kinds of things, wastewater solids, things from food and drink processing, animal waste, chemical waste, organic mixed solid waste, algae, getting ready to do another podcast on that. And then forest slash. This is a picture I took on Floyd Hill just yesterday showing some of the bark kill beetle bark kill out there. Whole patches of brown up here in the mountains if you haven't been up lately. So the nice thing about the forest products is you could make lumber out of it plus biofuels. So with that very long-winded introduction, Jim, I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to you and let you tell us all about Yosemite Clean Energy. Oops, you're on mute, Jim. There you go.
And where do I go to share?
There should be a bar at the bottom. There should be a little box that says share.
I do not see that. Well, let's see.
If you take your cursor to the bottom of the screen, do you get a pop-up menu down there?
No, I don't. I had thought that you could. Here we are. Here we are. Sorry.
Yeah, we always take for granted. We all know our experts at using all these different.
Okay.
Okay, it's starting to share, but it hasn't shown up yet. There we go. We got your slides, and can you go to presentation mode?
Yep. Hold on here. I'm a rookie.
We won't hang up on you.
How's that?
There we go. All right, we got it.
Good. Okay. Well, briefly, I'm Jim Corboy. My background has been in the corporate finance world for most of my career, starting in Denver in the mid 60s. I transitioned over to the energy sector in the 2005, 2008 timeframe in high voltage transmission with a company that spun out H2B2 electrolysis technologies. And I worked with them for a number of years and built a project in Fresno County, California. Then recently, through a relationship from the Abengoa days, I was called in to help Yosemite Clean Energy scout out and develop a Colorado-based project. I won't read word for word all these slides, but the cornerstone of this project is really our founder's background and experience in forest. He's a forest economist. He's been a researcher, worked in British Columbia for, I think, 20 years. And his statement, we stand partnered with nature to see our forest healed, fire damage minimized, watersheds reestablished, ecosystems return to their original structure, and our carbon cycles balanced. This is a biofuels project, but the cornerstone of the entire company is really that of our founder, who's really a forestry guy. So the project profile, it will be a biofuels plant built in either Rio Grande or Saguache County. We're meeting in 2 weeks and we'll evaluate two sites. But essentially we take dead timber from the forest and dead agriculture products, orchards and things, and convert it through a chemical process into synfuels and then create biofuels. Again, the project developer is Yosemite Clean Energy. They are well advanced in a project of similar size in California. And that's been going on for several years. And the reason that they called me in to, quote unquote, quarterback the Colorado project is it has been very hit and miss over the years. And I've got a slide coming up that'll talk a bit more about that. But the notion is to design, build, and operate a dual bed gasification biofuels plant using the iKernig Engineering Technical University out of Vienna. And it's a gasifier. I'm not a technology person. I'm not a chemist. So please don't ask me any questions about that. But it is technology that's been around in Europe for, I think, more than 20 years. And after a lot of research, our founder, Tom Hoppe, settled on that. And this picks up, Brian, on what you were talking about, because our downstream production will produce aviation fuel, jet fuel, or methanol, or renewable natural gas. We'll use approximately 65 to 100,000 what are called bone dry tons of woody biomass per year. Just for a general thing, the Rio Grande National Forest is about 2 million acres. That acreage, by estimate of the U.S. Forest Service particularly, is it'll produce at least 300,000, if not more. And that really was before some of the wildfires this year, particularly the Aspen fire. Project size will be 200 to 300. That's a broad range. The reason is 200 million if we're producing methanol, 300 million if we're producing sustainable aviation fuel or hydrogen for mobility. We don't expect there to be a lot of truck traffic passing through San Luis Valley, but maybe. The permanent employment will be about 70 skilled labor. So this has drawn a lot of attention from the economic development groups and the other stakeholder groups within the whole San Luis Valley. As I said earlier, we're looking at Rio Grande County and Saguache County, favoring Rio Grande County for a variety of reasons, one of which is the political climate, and Rio Grande is very supportive. We've met with the county commissioners in a workshop environment. They're very supportive. The water districts, there's the Rio Grande Water Conservation District. We're meeting with them in 2 weeks. The San Luis Valley Water Conservancy District. There's a lot of support for employment and for alternative uses of ground, which is no longer viable for agriculture production, particularly potato farming. The Rio Grande Water Conservation District has said that about a third of the farms in the San Luis Valley are destined to go out of business because of a lack of water. Now, if we make methanol we won't use much water at all. If we make sustainable aviation fuel, hydrogen, we'll use about 60 acre feet a year. But a potato farm consumes about 200 acre feet per year. So in any event, a lot of interest. Okay, every slide presentation has to have a slide that nobody can read, right? That's been my experience. So here's my contribution. But looking at the top shows March 22nd, March of 2022 is when discussions began for this project. In fact, one of the people who was in those discussions said they really started talking about it pre-COVID. It's been discussed over this period of time, and it has been very hit and miss. They've been focused on the California project, so they've come to the San Luis Valley and meet with a lot of people, and then they don't hear anything from anybody for 6 months. So that's why 3 or 4 months ago now they brought me in to be the quarterback really for this project. And at the bottom of this hard to read slide is we currently are in site negotiations and planning and permitting. And that's with the permitting agencies, with the air quality people, and with all of the water districts. Again, this would be the Rio Grande National Forest, harvesting these residuals, which is dead because of pine beetle or wildfire. We'll harvest mostly lodgepole pine, fir, spruce, etc. Although the U.S. Forest Service has encouraged us to look at aspen, that there apparently are a lot of aspen throughout that whole part of the state, which could be an alternative, and our technical people are looking at that. We are developing supply agreements under what's called a master stewardship agreement with the U.S. Forest Service, and working with private timberland owners and orchard farms as an alternative. But again, our primary focus is methane and jet fuel. Okay, the final slide here is collaborating with Seed Park International, which was founded as an NGO by a guy out of Midland, Texas, and he was the early conversations. Again, we have met with and are collaborating with the U.S. Forest Service, with the Colorado State Forest Service, Christian Switzer, U.S. Department of Agriculture, and interesting, the Colorado State Warner College of Natural Resources. I don't think it's very well known that college is nationally recognized for having a very effective, very advanced education program with a very large forestry focus. We are working with them now to utilize forestry students at the undergraduate and graduate level to do some data gathering for the forest. We think we'll use 6 to 8 interns next summer. And we're working with a guy named Seth Davis at the Warner College, and with I forget her name at the minute, but at the Colorado State Forest Service. I think it's well known. The Colorado State Forest Service is headquartered at CSU in Fort Collins. And then finally, working with the water districts, the development agencies, and we are optimistic we'll have a site secured and begin the formal permitting process by the end of October. This is a long-term project, but it's exciting to me because I got quite well highly educated in the electrolysis business, and now this is another form of creating from a different resource. So I would say finally, we welcome any of you on the call or anyone else to any support, because at this point it's me and the team from California. So thank you, Brian.
Yeah. Jim, do you live in California?
No, I live in Castle Rock, Colorado.
Oh, Castle Rock. I don't know why
Yeah.
I thought you were out in Sacramento, but
Well, I had an office in Sacramento for a number of years, but since I moved to Colorado and since this is now my focus, I've moved my office to Centennial.
Okay, all right. All right, so let's open up the floor to any questions. Anybody's got any questions or comments or whatever? Ross, you got your hand up. Go ahead. And you'll
Hi
have
there,
to take.
everyone.
Yeah, okay, you're off mute. Good.
I hope not sure if my camera's working. I'll be parked in a split second. I'm safe in Long Island County Park, so don't worry.
All right.
But I just posted a link in the chat. I've been meaning to share. You might be aware already of an aviation hydrogen network that's forming. And there's a great young girl who's a spokesperson for it. I say young, she's about my age, probably about 40, young 40s. And I was raising my hand just in case there's a chance I can get involved with the Yosemite project. I'm from Long Island, New York, but getting ready to pack up and move anyway. So I'm a free agent, just putting myself out there.
Yeah. Where are you
Okay.
gonna move? Are you gonna move to Colorado?
I'm actually thinking my next stop was potentially New Orleans. I do have a friend I keep in touch with in Denver. And Brian, I do appreciate us meeting once. I was an honor. I did get to meet you once in Denver, but it's been a long time. And I hope I can move back. I do love the city. And I used to live in San Diego for 10 years. So I'm open to relocating.
Yeah. Well, you
Huh.
mentioned High Sky, and I think the lady you're talking about is Daniel McLean.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yes, sir.
I just talked to her this week, and we're going to record a podcast a week from Friday. And it's going to be a wild one. We're going to get into some esoteric woo-woo stuff in that. She and I have interesting parallel backgrounds in a lot of things. But yeah, High Sky Society is
Wow.
very active. They have uh, webinars and things practically weekly, and so I encourage everybody to just go to High Sky, check that out, and just see what they're doing. All right, other questions? Well, maybe while people are thinking, I've got one, and Jim, I don't know if you can answer this, but I look at some of these hillsides that have got these big patches of brown, and I think, boy, you almost need either a heavy lift drone or helicopter or something to pull some of those trees out of there. Do you know if there's any plans to do that, or are you going to try to just get things close to the road with trucks and such?
We we're going to collaborate with companies that are in the logging and business of creating everything from 2x4s to whatever, and we will piggyback on their operations, and we will truck it to our location. There's some thought that we might be able to use rail. There's the Colorado Pacific Rail, which is a spur that connects into Walsenburg for the Union Pacific. Um, some of that spur goes up into back up in very, very close to the forest. So we're looking at that.
Okay. And then I assume the plan is to mill lumber out of what you can, and then all the slash, as it's called, the branches, the
Yeah,
bark, sawdust, and everything is what you're going to turn into
yeah,
fuel. Okay.
right, right.
Excellent. Yeah. Because I got to think that with the multiple products that you could create out of these trees, that it's got a pretty good payback for the probably fairly substantial cost to haul them out of there.
It does. Yes, yeah. The payback is much higher for SAF, but that's offset by another $100 million of capex. So
Yeah.
that's why we're really evaluating that. The methane would go to the maritime industry. We've had a lot of contacts in the maritime industry. As you said, there's a lot of these ships are now being converted for blending.
Hmm.
Uh, and then hydrogen, jet fuel, renewable natural gas, other things. So we don't have offtakes yet, but we're evaluating all of that and having a lot of conversation.
Yeah. All right. Bill Leedy's got his hand up. Go ahead, Bill.
Jim, Bill Leedy, Juneau, Alaska.
Hi,
Our
Bill.
small company back on March 27th, 2025, submitted a full application to the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub just before it was defunded for a clean multi-marine fuels plant to be built at Cherry Point, Washington, which is about halfway between Seattle and Vancouver, to supply fuel, clean fuel to the Alaska cruise ship industry. 40 ships make the journey throughout Southeast Alaska from the home ports in Seattle and Vancouver
Right.
during a 4.5 month season, and in the process burn about 200 million gallons of fossil fuel for propulsion and generation. That's the equivalent in energy of about 180,000 metric tons of hydrogen. So we propose a plant off grid that would extract all the energy necessary to make fuel, clean fuel, hydrogen, not ammonia. That's too deadly for cruise ship use, but perhaps other fuels from energy directly below that plant. And we propose deep hot dry rock geothermal. Now we know maybe there's the chance of using engineered hydrogen from supermafic rock if that happens to occur. But there's a lot of biomass in that neck of the woods. I wonder if your concept might be appropriate for that plant or another plant to be built at that same location, Cherry Point. It's a rather undeveloped place. I think the land is somewhat owned by the First People interest, Native Americans. Is that something that sounds interesting to you? Brian has our full application document. He could forward it to you, or I could send it to you. Thank you.
That would be very interesting. And Bill, you may not remember that we met at one of the functions at the Sacramento State Capitol, and you were demonstrating very little hydrogen device. And I know Wayne. So anyway, it's good to see you again, and we'd be very interested in exploring that opportunity.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Yeah,
Good.
Bill, why don't you, I'm not sure I can lay my hands on that document I was talking about. Why don't you go ahead and forward that to Jim, and we'll see where that goes.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Good.
Thanks, Bill, and thanks for being such a great supporter. You're always on the call. I appreciate that. So, all right. Other questions, comments from anybody? Jim, I got to think this has got legs if you can get the investment.
Yeah.
I'm not having looked at all the numbers and everything, but I think it's making a lot of sense. Ross, have you got your hand up again? Oh, Ross, we're not hearing you, and you're off mute.
And I just
There we go.
hopefully the audio works now.
Yep, got you now.
My Bluetooth doesn't work. It's okay. So the mention in the beginning about the forest management is if we're removing all of these trees, there must be an ecological study or an environmental study on the impact of removing all of that material from the forest that's part of the ecology that the forest needs that typically. So have you looked into that balance already?
The company has, I've not been directly involved in any of that, but the company has done that extensively. And then again, we'll be working with interns from Colorado State University next summer to really capture a lot more data. The issue is the dead trees, and then because we have let the forests, we've not protected them from the forest fires as much as some would suggest we should have, which means the forests are too dense, and so there's a lot of timber available. So
Thinning. Yeah, it's interesting. I used to ski at Los Alamos. There's a little ski area there. And
yeah,
there was a poster I saw one time of the forest there before people were there and started logging. And these are ponderosa forests, which we have in a lot of the West. And the trees were, 50 feet apart, very wide open. It was almost like a grassy meadow with big trees in it. Then people came in, they cut down all those trees, and then the forest came back very densely with a lot of small trees really jammed together. And it's those forests that really burn because a lot of the pines, ponderosa in particular, has a fairly fire-resistant bark. And once you've got a big tree going and the lowest limb is 20, 30 feet up, you can have these grass fires sweep through, and it doesn't really affect the trees. And I've actually seen that happen. And so what we have nowadays, almost every area in the country has been logged out at some point, and we get these really dense forests. And what we really should have had was foresters in there, thinning those trees and everything. But
Yeah,
just to be clear, Ross, I think Jim, what you're talking about is really only taking out dead trees. Is that right?
that's correct.
Okay, so
That's
trees
correct.
that have either already burned
Right.
or trees that have been killed by the bark beetle.
Correct. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
and so that's a little tricky because normally loggers like to go in and just, basically scrape an area, take it all out.
Right.
Uh, but this is going to be a little bit more selective, and that's why I was asking the question about maybe heavy lift drones or something like that. I
Yeah,
don't
I'm
know if
not,
that exists.
that hadn't come up in my conversations, but that's an interesting question. I'll pursue that.
But you're relying on the loggers to remove the trees anyway, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll let them worry about it, but this would be a great application for drones. I know they're using some pretty good sized drones now for stringing cables for high tension lines. So
Yes.
maybe they're beefy enough to pull a tree out. I don't know. Depends
Yeah.
how dry the tree is, I suppose. But
Yeah. Right.
yeah.
Yep.
All right. Other questions or comments? All right. Well, Jim, thank you. And let's stay in touch. If there's any reason to come back and talk to the group again, let me
Great.
know.
Thank you.
I would love to do a podcast with you. You want to do that
Great.
sometime? So,
Well, that would be very, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll maybe leave it to you to poke at me to do a podcast. And it's
Okay.
it's real easy. We just agree on some talking points, and then I edit the recording so that we both come out
Okay.
sounding brilliant,
Perfect.
even
That
even
sounds
more
great.
brilliant than usual. How's that?
Yeah. There you go. Yeah.
All
That'd be great.
right.
We would like to do that.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna seize back. Um, I think I can just grab it from you. The sharing here. Yeah. There we go. All right. So while we're talking about kind of biomass and carbon and so forth, you want to talk so much about this carbon capture conference, but it's going to lead into something here. So I was contacted a couple of weeks ago asking if I'd like to speak at this carbon capture utilization and sequestration exchange, which is going to happen in Houston, November 18th. And although I've got some things to say, I didn't really feel I could do this because I don't have, this isn't a space I'm working in. If anybody had questions, I think they'd exceed my knowledge of this really quick. But I do know somebody that I did a couple of podcasts on regarding algae. And so I reached out to him to talk about or to see if he was interested in speaking at this conference, and he was, and found out that he's just started a startup company called Aegeus Bioscience. And so I connected them with this carbon capture exchange event. And lo and behold, they're going to be participating in a panel discussion. And I have to say there was a lot of excitement at the carbon capture exchange because they didn't really have anybody talking about biological carbon capture. I think most of their speakers were really looking at mechanical means to do this. So here's the website if you want to check it out, Aegeus Bioscience NM, because they're down in New Mexico.com. And so let's kind of dig into this just a little bit. Oh, by the way, if you want to listen to these podcasts about using algae to make biofuels or hydrogen or whatever, go back to April of 2022 and February of 2023 for those two podcasts. So what we're talking about here is basically taking algae, which does direct air carbon capture, of course, being a plant. And the really nice thing about algae is that the entire plant is devoted to photosynthesis. We don't have bark or wood or roots or anything like that. So it's pretty efficient in that regard. From that algae, you can make a lot of stuff, industrial enzymes and animal feed, but you can also extract a biocrude from that. And that biocrude could be processed in a refinery. And if you wanted to make this somewhat carbon negative, you could request that biocrude, some of it be sequestered, just dumped down an old oil well or something, which would make this a little bit carbon negative. And then the refinery can process, you can turn it into jet fuel or renewable natural gas or methanol, like we've just been talking about. There's a company here that does that refining, Genefuel. They're in Salt Lake area, I believe, genefuel.com, if you want to check that out. And then, of course, those users are going to emit carbon dioxide, but that carbon dioxide was pulled from the atmosphere anyway. If you sequestered some of the biocrude, you're making it a little bit carbon negative. So not a zero carbon cycle, but for those hard to abate sectors like shipping, we've talked about, maybe long distance aviation, building heating perhaps, this might make a lot of sense. So I really think that this has a lot of possibility. The algae, of course, has to be grown in ponds. So if you're someplace that doesn't have a lot of water, that could be problematic. But this is saltwater algae, so anywhere near the ocean, water's just about free. Got to pump it, but that's about it. So really something to be considered, and I'm hopeful that maybe if I do enough podcasts on this, maybe this will catch on. And we're actually looking at doing another podcast to talk about Aegeus biosciences. So, all right. Okay, switching gears here, I discovered, some of you may already know about this, that a train is planned, an express intercity passenger train called the Colorado Connector, or COCO, for term of endearment, I guess you could say. But apparently this project's pretty far along. It's going to use some existing tracks, and it's got signed term sheets for what that's worth. Here's where the stations are. Initially, it's, I think, just the Denver-Fort Collins leg, and then things will be added to the south later. But the starter service is expected to start in 2029 with 3 daily round trips. And then they're going to roll out or extend the service in phases down to Colorado Springs, Pueblo, and Trinidad, and maybe even connect into New Mexico. Trinidad's right down near the border. You go across, you're in Raton, and there are train lines there already, so the track is there. So interesting. And, when I read this, I started thinking about the trip that I took on Amtrak from Denver to Glenwood Springs last winter. We wanted to just see what that run looked like, and it's pretty scenic, but I think the fastest we went was about 35 miles an hour, and there was a lot of unexpected stops. And I thought this was interesting. It says, the starter service term sheet with Burlington Northern Santa Fe includes contractual priority for passenger trains over the local freight lines. And that's good to hear, because Amtrak, the schedule is just kind of a loose suggestion. That's just the way it is. But at any rate, so let's keep watching for that. I think that's exciting that we'll have a train. It's not cycling past the airport, but maybe they'll have a spur or something that will link to that. All right, so I'm going to switch gears one more time. I wanted to talk about, I just recently saw a YouTube video that really got my thought process going. And so something that I've shown before is this discussion about what an energy solution needs to succeed. Obviously, we've got to have the 3 legs of the stool for a solution. It's got to be technically feasible. We can't have science experiments. It's got to cost the same or less than what we already have. And then to be accepted by the public, it's got to have performance, the same performance and convenience as what they have already. And so, makes a lot of sense. But the video that I watched talked about the timing of these things. And this guy that did the video, and by the way, here's the link. If you want to link to this YouTube, it's about 23 minutes long. It's pretty interesting. And really, it's talking about the AI bubble right now. And this guy was speculating, well, is it real? Is it going to continue? And so he looked at things in the past, like the rollout of the railroads, or the experience with the supersonic aircraft, and some other things, and said, if some of these clocks start falling behind, that's going to kind of kill it. And the one that killed the the supersonic was the profitability clock. You know, they really could never get to that. It was pretty costly. And I think the easiest way to kind of visualize this is to think about battery electric vehicles. All right, the first Tesla came out 18 years ago in 2008. And they're not really catching on. The sales of the battery vehicles have really fallen off. People are now going more for hybrids. And I think the reason is that they feel like they're doing something for the climate and the ecology by driving a hybrid, but it's got better performance than what you're going to get out of a battery vehicle because of the range, and you can refuel it with gasoline if you need to. So, you know, the thing I think that's really killing the battery vehicles is this acceptance. You know, here we are 18 years in, and you can't really say they've caught on. The public opinion polls show only 20 to 40% of drivers out there are ever willing to get a battery-only vehicle. So I think this is a useful model as we all think about trying to roll out some of these new technologies. You know, it's the capability, the profitability, and the rate of adoption going to be fast enough, you know, because these are interrelated. If people aren't adopting it, you're not going to become profitable. And if you can't get the cost down, people aren't going to adopt it. And like in the case of the battery vehicles, capability, well, if we had a battery that was had twice the energy density, you know, maybe that could be the key to really unlock the battery vehicles. But I try to be kind of a thought leader. I won't be so immodest as to say I am, but I just thought this was an interesting way to kind of look at things and think about it, and so I encourage you to take a look at that YouTube video. All right, so I mentioned that got a number of podcasts. There's been kind of a storm of things coming up right now. I'm going to be recording tomorrow on Thursday with CERAD to talk about the hydrogen market's alive and well and the data that shows it. You know, I think we've all felt like, well, with the new federal administration, things have really slowed down, and people, even though maybe the opportunities are still there, they're reluctant, the investors and other people are reluctant to move because they want to wait and see what happens. But CERAD really has a lot of data and a lot of tools to cut and slice and dice that data. And it doesn't look that bad. I don't know if I'll say it looks that good. We'll save that judgment for the podcast itself. But I wanted to get that out there because I think a little bit of enthusiasm and positive thinking could probably go a long way for the market right now. And California Hydrogen Station's lesson learned, just had a call today with the Hydrogen Fuel Cell Partnership. We're going to put together kind of a little bit of a lessons learned on what's going on with the California hydrogen fueling market. I think that could be hurting or holding us back in a lot of places, and it'd be nice to just take a look at what happened there. Can we do better elsewhere, like here in Colorado? And I think we can. And then High Sky, I already mentioned, had a call last week with Danielle McLean, and we're going to put a podcast together to talk about probably a lot more than hydrogen. So just put that little tickler out there in your ear. Southeast Hydrogen Alliance, going to try to put together a podcast with them. We've been going back and forth trying to find a date. There's a company, Ayrton Energy, that's got a new liquid organic hydrogen carrier, LOHC, that overcomes some of the limitations of others. The other ones needed a fair amount of heat to release the hydrogen, and theirs is a lot more efficient. For those of you that don't know, these liquid organic hydrogen carriers are stable at room temperature and ambient pressure, and they're also not flammable, believe it or not. And so they could be carried around in existing gasoline, diesel trucks. They could be probably used in existing fueling stations and just converted back to hydrogen at the end. So I want to do a podcast on that. And then data centers. I think there's a big opportunity here to power data centers with hydrogen with the new coming geologic hydrogen. The jury's still out on how widespread that's going to be and how concentrated that's going to be, but that should occur in most states. And then, barring that, we can use old abandoned petroleum reservoirs to create hydrogen, and that could power data centers. So the idea there would be everything would be on the same campus, the source of the hydrogen as well as the data center itself. And the nice thing about this is a data center would have enough offtake to make a big supplier like a well pay off, and then that low-cost hydrogen, probably 25 to 50 cents a kilogram at the well, could be used by other users like the fuel stations and so forth. So that's why I say it's really an opportunity. So got that in work, as well as maybe a podcast with you, Jim. So so there we are. So that's all I have. I finished a little bit ahead, but would like to turn it over if anybody's got other questions or comments or anything like that. Please feel free to jump in.
I had a quick question in your slide, the 3 o'clock problem slide. I think you commented that cost has to be equal or equivalent. I've seen a lot of financial projections from reputable, big companies with the assumption that, well, people will pay a premium if it's clean hydrogen. Is there any evidence of that?
Well, that's a tough one. Now, I think individuals that are motivated and want to do something to help save the climate and everything, they're willing to pay a little bit of a premium. I think for businesses, that's harder because they've got to make
Yeah.
a profit. They've got shareholders and others, folks, investors and things to answer to. I don't know. That's just a matter of opinion. I think it's got to be pretty close to the same cost, if not lower. Bill Eady's got his hand up. Go ahead, Bill. Oh,
Brian?
yeah, there you are. Gotcha.
In your earlier soliloquy, when you were reciting the catalog of markets for hydrogen, you touched on marine. I'm not sure what you said about it. I've done a recent research paper as a memo to our local government, encouraging them and us to accelerate the conversion of this large cruise ship industry calling on Southeast Alaska from fossil to clean fuels. And in that research, I discovered that there is a cruise ship which will be delivered this year from a yard in Italy called Fincantieri, which will be able to produce about half of its propulsion energy from hydrogen, probably stored aboard as liquid hydrogen. I'm not sure that I have that correct. But there are others who are interested in hydrogen as a marine fuel, hydrogen to fuel cell, to electric bus, to the propulsion engines through the controls. So there may be a market there. As I mentioned earlier, the demand for cruise ship fuel just during that 4.5 month season in the summer for Southeast Alaska is the equivalent of about, I think it's 180,000, I may be wrong, maybe it's 130,000 metric tons of clean hydrogen. So there's a big market there, whether it's made from biomass, as Jim suggested, or some other clean source. Thank you.
Yeah, well, there are a number of ships planned, mostly ferries and kind of local kind of ships to burn hydrogen. But of course, you've got to have the high pressure tanks for it. You probably wouldn't store it as a liquid. Whereas methanol, of course, is stable at ambient temperature and pressure, so that makes that a little easier. And I think a diesel engine could be modified to run on methanol. I won't swear to that, but it seems like I heard that somewhere. So that one's maybe a little easier, at least for existing ships. The other fuel, which you didn't mention, Bill, is ammonia. And I think that probably cruise ships are going to stay away from that just because the
Yeah.
irritation factor. It's not It's not exactly poisonous, but in high enough levels it is. Of course,
Yes, it is. Yes, it is poisonous.
well, it's a tissue irritant, and so if you breathe a big gulp of it, you probably damage your lungs. Whereas just a little whiff is just going to make you cringe. But possibly for cargo ships and things, ammonia maybe is a
Yes.
good one, and especially if they're already carrying ammonia.
Yes, container ships and other bulk carriers where the crew is only 10 or 20 people
Right.
and they're in a castle far above the rest of the ship. So if there is a leak, they can just go stand outside in the fresh air while one of them puts on the hazmat suit and
Right.
goes down with a wrench, fixes the problem.
Puts his finger in the hole in the dike, just like the Dutch boy.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Uh,
But for cruise ship fuel, probably liquid is the fuel of choice. You don't have enough space on the ships to store high pressure gaseous hydrogen.
right. Yeah, that's valuable space you could be
Right.
selling to passengers. So Ross has got his hand up again. Go ahead, Ross.
Let's second the audio switch again. I was curious if can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Thanks. If anyone caught wind, because there was a marine conversion project with ammonia with a Korean company called Emoji partnering with MSC, the Swiss shipping company, and they were actually doing a research project with a startup in Brooklyn that I probably shouldn't say, but they had an incident with their combustion test lab.
Mm.
And I was just curious if anyone ever heard in the news about that progress going forward, if anyone caught that project had come to a halt, because I'm excited. I have to look up, and if it was Bill or whoever else mentioned that ship taking sail from Italy, if you have any other details or the name of that project, I'd be interested to look that up. But I was just curious if anyone heard about this other MSC project with Emoji for an ammonia hydrogen conversion program, and it got put to a halt last year.
I have not. I don't know.
Yeah.
Bill, can you comment? No. Well, we'll have to. Maybe we can all do a little research, see what we can find on that. But I think there are going to be ships out there powered by ammonia, but I think they will be just the um, cargo, not passenger.
Yep.
All right. Okay, we're almost at the 4:30 mark, but I won't cut us off if there are any other questions or comments from anybody. We're good. All right. Well, we're just
Another
about on.
great session.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Ross, if you're in the area, give me a shout. We'll go have a coffee or something.
Everyone can say bye to the Long Island Sound. I'm about to take off from this is my farewell tour.
Yeah, beautiful day.
Lucky.
Yeah, it looks real pretty. All right. Okay,
Nice hearing from you
so
all.
I think we will adjourn unless one last time. Any thoughts? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you everybody for attending, and we will see you next month.
Good. Thanks, Brian.
You bet.
Hey Brian,
Oh,
did you
hi.
get
How's
my
it going,
email?
Elliot?
You get my email?
I did, and I just haven't had a chance to
Oh,
go back
that's
to it.
fine. It's a freshened up version of it's a pretty finished website. So
Yeah, I like the picture behind you. It's beautiful.
oh yeah, that it is cool. But anyway, we're coming along. We still have our work cut out for us, but it's getting closer. So
Yeah. Well, keep me posted, and if you ever want to talk or anything on the meeting here, just let me know.
I'm pretty close to being ready to we just need to get one thing done, and if we get that done, then we can certainly start talking about it. We
Okay.
do have a commitment for conventional fuels. I think I told you that, a substantial commitment,
Okay.
but the clean fuel side of it, we're going to do the hydrogen from our previous relationships, but we're doing some stuff with charging, but we got to get the land tied up, and we're working on that right now.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good strategy to start out with something conventional and then move on to hydrogen as
Yeah.
as you can.
Yeah, that's the whole thing was looking at what's been going on over the past 6, 7 years is that the whole lot of great concepts and technology but it's kind of a one and done deal because some of these companies got a whole lot of money and they burned through it and they didn't have any revenues. And that's what I saw was let's create some revenues and healthy foods and clean and conventional fuel will get us there and still puts us in the same place. But we're going to have hydrogen day one
Yeah.
uh, and electric charging, but just not on a large scale.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I gave you the model of the clocks, the capability, and the cost clock. So maybe that kind of informs your thinking a little bit on that too.
Yeah, we if we're selling 5, 6 million gallons a year of regular fuel to the trucking industry, diesel and regular to the cars, and then we've got a convenience store that's generating the larger margins with the
Yeah.
healthy foods, then we got plenty of money to do our own funding
Yep.
internally to help it grow. And the numbers on these facilities are very large. So,
Hmm.
and City of Denver's giving us the blessing. They just want us to get funding. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good luck with that. And I
all right.
can't do
Thank
much
you.
to
I'll
help,
let
but
you
anything I
go.
can do to help you, let me know.
I do want to talk to you, but not today.
Yeah.
Soon.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you very much. See you
All
guys. Hi,
right.
Bill.
Brian,
Yeah.
Bill here.
Yeah.
In the chat, I put a link to an announcement by Rolls-Royce and Tata Consultation Services about their success, apparently, in running a gas turbine on 100% hydrogen for of commercial aviation interest
Hmm.
size. So there's another potential for transportation fuel.
And that was
Thank
Tata, and
you.
they're Indian. Seems like I
That's
saw
the India
Rolls
group.
Royce or somebody else that also run a turbine 100% on
Yeah,
hydrogen. So,
this is Rolls-Royce partnering with Tata Consultant Services.
oh, maybe that's the same one I saw.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably the same one.
Yeah.
The link
Okay.
is in the chat. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. All right. I'm going to sign off, everyone. Thank you again for joining.